So welcome everyone. This is our webinar on growing your product management career in an uncertain economy. So we are thrilled that you are here with us from, like I said, all over the world. That is very exciting. And we want to talk today about, while, the economy might be a little crazy, your product management career does not have to be. The field of product management remains as exciting and dynamic as ever. And if we in product management know anything, it's that continuous improvement is always a must. So we're thrilled that you're here to talk through a range of topics. We've got current demand for product managers, how product managers can help companies in times of economic uncertainty, how to set yourself apart, and any additional career tips and insights that we'll chat through, give you guys a chance to ask some questions and get those answers from our experts. Our expert speakers are here. They are going to introduce themselves in a minute, but they do bring years of experience in product management and a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing professionals in this space. So they'll share some insights and advice on how to navigate the current landscape and position yourself for success in the years ahead. So with that, I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves like I mentioned. So Joe, I will pass it to you first.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. My name is Joe Ghali. I hail from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're thankfully the 9 inches of snow we got on Saturday has finally melted, so we're waiting on spring to get here. But I'm so excited to be here. I've been in the product management space for 20 years, working in a variety of industries, and I'm so excited to partner with Elad and Kate to talk about a really great topic on how we can help you upskill your product management skill set in an uncertain economy. Elad, I hand the baton over to you.
Thanks, Joe. I'm Elad Simon. I'm here in Tel Aviv in Israel. So it's evening time. I cannot say that we're shoveling snow or anything is melting. I must say it's a little bit cooler than yesterday, but it's like 21 degrees. This is Celsius, which is like, so anyway, for those, it's pretty warm. It's pretty mild. We're deep in spring. I've been around the world of product management for about, best part of 15 years. And obviously, as part of leading Craft.io, meeting a lot of product practitioners from different companies, different company sizes, and different stages in their career and different evolutions. So I think I have both my personal perspective, but also a little bit of the kind of perspectives of working with a lot of product organizations out there. So hopefully can make this an interesting webinar for all people on here. And thanks, of course, Kate and Joe for inviting me over.
You both. And as it says there, my name is Kate Fuchs. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm also at the 280 Group as a product manager, and I live in Greenville, South Carolina, where spring has certainly sprung here as well. So we are dealing with all of the pollen. Those of you in this area probably are well aware of that.
Was that an allergy comment, basically?
Oh yes, southern snow is what we call it. Got the yellow pollen everywhere.
I've never heard of that expression, southern snow. That is fabulous.
Yep. All right, so let's do a really quick overview of 280 Group and Craft, just to get you all aligned with where your experts are coming from. 280 Group is your ultimate outcome-driven product partner. So with a team of expert consultants and trainers, we do offer customized solutions as well as public solutions tailored to your specific needs. Our consultants, such as Joe, bring decades of real-world experience from top companies, and we would love to partner with you on tools, knowledge, or expert guidance to achieve your goals. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn. We'll include some links in the chat at the end of the webinar as well, and discover how we can help you. So let's take a quick look at Craft.io as well. So Craft.io is a wonderful platform where we empower product teams to build exceptional products with confidence. It's a comprehensive suite of tools and features. You can easily manage your entire product lifecycle from ideation to launch and beyond. The platform is designed to streamline your workflow, so improve collaboration, communication, and provide real-time insights into your product development process. And be sure to follow LinkedIn as well, Craft.io. So that is where we're coming from today. All right, so let's go ahead and, oh, and we will be recording. I know I had some questions in the chat on that, so we will record. And you are also more than welcome. You can see the little arrow there on the screen. There's a Q&A. There's also the chat. Please send some questions. I see someone already has, so you're ahead of the game. Feel free to do that. We have a team in the background. We'll be kind of weeding through, finding popular questions that we can answer live, as well as collecting them and answering them in the chat. So please do feel free to do that. All right. So with that, as a voice of the customer expert of all product managers should be, we want to know what you all want to know. So we're going to open our first poll. It's important to, continually grow, and we want to understand the areas that you wish to do that for. So there's actually there's, I believe, 10 different choices in here. What product management areas do you want to improve upon? You can choose 3, please do, and make sure you scroll down in the poll. There are 10, so there is a scroll bar on the side. I don't want you to not see those bottom options. Awesome, lots of answers coming in. Oh my goodness, it's like watching
This
a horse
is awesome.
race.
I love seeing that those numbers just like going up and up and up. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
Roadmaps for product success metrics.
Who's gonna win? Do you know this is like these LinkedIn videos that like they have these like graphs that keep changing between who's gonna
Yeah. We should almost do like Price is Right, where we guess what topic's gonna win.
I know.
We should do that. Yeah, that's fun. And yes, we will share the results at the end, not at the end of the webinar, but when it starts to slow down, which it sort of is. So I'll give you a little countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's end the poll and share those results so everyone can see what we're looking at. Wonderful. All right, so now you should be able to see our results. It looks like product success metrics. Experts, do you want to weigh in?
I can't say I'm surprised. Roadmaps and success metrics are big, especially in this day and age. We're talking about, getting an ROI from our investment. A lot of companies really struggle with, am I getting a return on investment in my resources? And so, success metrics, I don't know about you, Elad, but when we do a lot of our workshops and training and even our consulting, a lot of leaders ask us, like, how do we know we're doing a good job? How do we know we're making progress? And we talk about outcomes. Roadmaps, I'm not surprised at all, right? How do we build strategic roadmaps? What about you? What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I mean, if I bundle all top three actually, so product success metric, roadmaps, and leadership, I would say eventually they're one of the same in a way, right? So I think, and it kind of makes sense also for this kind of webinar. I mean, this is how I imagine it to be, at least. So it's good to see at least some data around that. That eventually, I think a lot of product teams they want to be more strategic. They want to be more outcome driven rather than output driven, and they want to basically build and tell a more compelling and comprehensive story, which I think, by the way, we'll get to that, of course, later. But I do think that, one of the key success criteria is indeed actually elevating the product work to a much more of a strategic element that really connects the work being done and the features being delivered with the actual strategy and what actually the company itself matters. So I think that's not a surprise. I was a little bit surprised, but not really, to see how uninteresting Agile is.
Yeah.
So, being the last one, right? So that's I think that's our ultimate, which is honestly, it warms my heart in a way, because I think, in a lot of cases you see product managers being obsessed about, the methodology, the ceremonies instead of the value. And I actually like it. I really liked it. Oh, and somebody said we already know.
You already know about Agile. Good.
That's fair enough.
Not a webinar about Agile, so you're
we drank all the Kool-Aid. We drank all the Kool-Aid about Agile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, that's what it looks like. Folks are commenting on. Wonderful. Yes, that's great. It does look very strategic, focused, outcome, items. But thank you all for participating in that. I think that will absolutely help us guide our discussion. as we move forward. So let's get into it. Our first couple of topics is really progressing through the product manager ranks, as well as sort of exploring the different types of roles. So I'm going to turn it over to our experts to talk through what they think about these two early topics. So Joe, do you want to take first swing?
Yeah, this is when we do a lot of our engagements. I have a lot of newer product managers, even experienced product managers asking this question. And Elad, I know you get this a lot too. And it's interesting because it's like, okay, how much time do we have? We have, an hour. What can we try to cover in a short amount of time? I think, the short answer is experience. Right? It's, how many different scenarios, situations have you been in? Have you been a product manager with a digital product? Have you been a product manager with physical products? Have you done an IoT? What are the scenarios? Have you been a product manager when the economy is doing magnificently? Or, have you been a product manager when it's a challenging time? So I always try to say, yes, experience is probably one of the most critical components. But I think fundamentally, when I look at hiring product managers, what's their attitude? Do they display empathy? Are they inquisitive? Are they always asking questions? Do they have that natural curiosity? And I think in lieu of having the role of a product manager, you can still be curious within your organization. You can still empathize with a shared service or a different department and try to understand their point of view and partner with them or, with IT and say, okay, maybe there are some opportunities and here's the value in solving it. And then there's the certification piece of it, which kind of wraps around. And we'll talk a little bit more about the training and the certification piece, but that's kind of what comes to mind when people ask me, how do I grow? Elad, how would you complement that?
Yeah, so I think one, I really resonated with your point about curiosity, because I think eventually, I mean, for me, that's probably the one thing that as a product manager you really have to possess, especially because a product manager's role is so all-inclusive, 360 degrees into every part of the business, from sales to customer success, to the strategy, to the senior leadership, to the actual execution. So I really do think that keeping a curious mind, regardless of, again, are you working on an internal product, external product, etc. That's one thing that I always I look for when I hire or when we look for talented people in the space. But also as advice, I think that's a very solid advice, and to keep that curious mind is super important. The other thing, and again, this is from my learnings as just like growing through the ropes, I would say finding a good manager, and I know that's like a little bit of a like, okay, it's not always that easy, but I always tell, I mean, I think even nowadays product managers are still privileged in a way that they can still kind of choose their job rather than they have to go to, I mean, in many cases they can choose their position. And my recommendation is really finding somebody, a person that can really help you grow, and you feel is as part of their agenda is to grow a strong product organization and to teach. By the way, related to that, and this is sometimes I give this advice and it always sounds counterintuitive. So when people ask me how do I grow, especially if they're starting, like just getting started, I try to give them the advice without sounding too dramatic, but like my advice is don't start with a very small organization. And I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, because I think in a lot of cases people would say, no, well, I want to start with a startup, and I want to start like with a small team. In my mind, I think seeing early in your career, and again, this is more for like people who are just getting into the profession, seeing how good looks like early in your career is super important. It doesn't mean you have to join like Microsoft or like a huge organization. It doesn't mean that you have to, but sometimes when you join, like if you have one or two product managers in the whole company, it's hard to know what good looks like, right? So, and when you have a team of even 5 or 10 product managers that are, that it's humming, so that could be even a team of like a company of like 200, maybe 300 people. I think you gain a lot. It doesn't mean you have to stay there. You can always go down the entrepreneurship route and then, go to a smaller company or go to a bigger company. But I always believe in like starting from a place that has the capacity to teach. And I am a CEO of a startup, so I can tell you, I mean, in many small startups, it is hard to find the capacity to teach people from the get-go, right? So it really is difficult to find that time, not because of anything bad, we don't want to or anything. And so my advice, again, as a starting position, I would really try to go for a place that has the capacity for mentorship and for growing your career. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, if I can, I know there's some questions in the chat, so let me build off of that. So if that opportunity doesn't present itself, right, where, maybe your options are limited in terms of where you can work, what I tell a lot of people is, this is where, especially in this economy, you see a lot more people going back and getting their MBA, or they're taking the time and going through like one of our certifications. And the value, I think people underestimate the value of the teamwork and the networking, meeting other people. Because for me, earlier in my career, I worked for a small company and I struggled with what does good look like. And so, going back, especially in this economy, going back and getting a higher level degree or getting a certification, it's not so much the actual certification, but it's the opportunity to network and meet other people and do team projects and go through that journey together. And then, you stay together with those folks after your learning is done. You go out, for a glass of wine, or you meet up with them, you have a beer, or you see them at a game or at an event. You can augment that challenge by going out and putting yourself in a position where you're going to get exposed to people, to more peers that are in your particular bubble or particular space.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And by the way, related to that, not the same, but similar, I would say. And I think some people mentioned it on the chat as well. Like in terms of like, there's quite a lot of, I would say, like PM communities out there. Especially because product management for many people is an unsolved riddle, right? So it's not like the playbooks it's a pretty new profession. If you think about it, like the modern product manager is still a very new profession. So the playbooks are still being written in a way, even nowadays. And so finding those, I don't want to call them support groups, but you know what I mean? Like those product management communities, again, it's a very powerful, and it's a Google search away to find those communities. I have my own favorite ones, but honestly, we can share after this. But there really is an abundance, including, by the way, even physical communities that would be in your cities, or in your area at least, so that you can kind of go and and do a meetup once a month. And so whether it's formal or I would say informal training, I think that's a really powerful way to grow as a product manager. So I couldn't agree more. I would say, and I know, this is like, we're always swirling in these webinars, right? So because there's always things to say on this, but from my perspective, one of the things you want to think about in terms of dimensions, like I think as you progress in your career in general, and this is not just for product managers, I think you're supposed to move from the more tactical to the more strategic. I mean, this is like, I always think of that dimension as one thing to always put, kind of like, as a guiding light for managing a career. And I think eventually the people who are very successful in managing a good career is people that are able to flex between those two layers, like from strategy to execution, very, I would say smoothly, right? So those are the people that are really, and so I think trying to, like try out more strategic elements, and it can be done at any level of product management, really, like not just focusing on the execution piece is very important for growing your career. And I know for some people, for a lot of people, product management as a profession is to do with, like eventually shipping things, making things happen, building things, and it is exciting, eventually we are all, you can't avoid the fact that when you're launching a new feature, you're excited, you see it in production, you're like, oh my God, we've been working on this for 3 months. It's an exciting moment whereas, connecting your features to OKRs might not be as exciting of a moment, right? Yeah. But eventually pulling yourself between those like strategy and execution pieces is another piece I would say from a growth perspective for product managers. And this is throughout your career. I think as you progress through the ladders, you become you expect basically to more and more lean into the strategy and less to the execution piece, I would say. And so early on, starting like with that feeling, like getting that sense and always keeping that layer in mind I think is very important.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm seeing lots of chatter in the chat on talking through, kind of validating what you were mentioning about, grabbing a job at a larger, place to start with. I can certainly attest from personal experience that was so valuable for my career and growth and having that ability to be mentored and gain an understanding of what great product management looks like. So thank you for that. Let's see, aligning yes. Okay. So let's move into, I see a couple in the Q&A, but let's move into the next slide because I think it will answer some of these questions. We have on here, there's 4 listed. I'm sure there's a whole lot more either, related or,
there's many more.
There's many more, right? Titles or just different types of roles. So we kind of have it at a high level here, but we wanted to go over this to kind of orient yourself as far as where you are in your career and maybe where you want to go next. So we're going to do a brief kind of overview of what our interpretation of each of these types of product managers are, and then we'll move into maybe where the next job that you want to land will be. So who would like to take this?
I'll take the first 2, Elad, and you can take the bottom 2. That's reasonable. All right, so business product management. Think of this as your traditional product manager. I think there was a question in the chat about like, what does it mean to be a modern product manager? And so this is where you are in. You represent the voice of the customer. You're representing a segment, right? Whether it be on a digital side or on the physical products or even IoT, this is where your traditional sense of, connecting the who and the why and bringing that to your dev team and brainstorming with them together on the what and allowing them to come up with the how, right? That's when we talk about business product managers and even the modern product manager, that's kind of where that answers that question that was in the chat in terms of, today, combining metrics, understanding behavior, understanding the voice of the customer, bringing tangible artifacts to the table like persona, partnering up with UX like on personas and customer journey maps. And, we do some of these exercises in our class, bringing that and collaborating with your team and empowering them to brainstorm with you on the solution. That is your business product manager. A growth product manager is a little bit newer in that, for large organizations, this is a product manager focused on a specific outcome, right? So you may be focused on revenue generation or customer satisfaction or retention or churn. So this is a product manager that may be more shallow in terms of working across the organization to identify with different product teams those initiatives around a common outcome that they're trying to achieve. And I'll kind of hand the baton over to Elad to talk about the product owner and the TPM as complements to the ones above.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, just to note, I mean, not all organizations have all these titles, right? So in many organizations, especially smaller ones, but I would see it also in larger ones, you might have just one, which is like the title called product manager, or I think what we call here the business product manager, which is like this modern version of what used to be a product manager before Agile was kind of I would say created. And by the way, growth really is, I think, of all these four, growth is probably the newest newest title. Still probably not that new. but one that is really focused, and you see them a lot in, especially in the PLG companies, et cetera, those folks. But going into the product owner space, so I like to think of product owners. I mean, the way I heard it from a good friend of mine was that, if product managers are like the masters of the problems, then product owners are the masters of the solution, kind of thing. So I think they are go hand in hand with the PM and work together with them and with the development team, of course, and of course with UX, if relevant, on identifying the right solutions. They are it's a slightly, I can say, I've met, I think, really like hundreds, if not thousands, of product teams in my life, and product owner is not necessarily a well-defined role in practice. It could be anything from like a borderline scrum master kind of thing that like really is like very much, but if in its I would say in its intent, product owner is supposed to be somebody who says, okay, I understand where the business is coming from, where the problems are, where the strategy is, and now I am in charge of identifying and eventually bringing to life the actual solution. And so that's kind of like the classic product owner, and you see them in companies that are, I would say, the more mature the company would be, the more likely it would have a product owner as a role. And again, it's to do also with the complexity of solutions, right? So especially as companies become more mature, their product portfolio becomes more complicated. And so you see that there's a necessity of like actually splitting the role into two. And so that's kind of, that's the product owner. And then the technical product manager, I think that's a really, for me, that's a not super well-defined role. The obvious thing I think that comes to mind with technical product manager, imagine you're the product manager in charge of APIs or of things that are related to like you're building a developer platform. So, or really like a deep technology, like really deep technical solution. And so in those cases, you would see that I think some, product managers are almost by definition generalists, but in some cases, as the technology becomes more complicated, it stretches the ability of let's say a classic or a business product manager to actually to manage. And you'll need a layer of technical product managers who are able to actually be closer to the actual technology. And that's that's at least what I've seen. Again, if product owner is not well defined, technical product managers is even less well defined in my mind, because it really is used for many different reasons. I don't know, Joe, if you have any thoughts, or Kate, if you have any thoughts about that. That's what I've seen, at least from for that role.
For the technical product manager role,
yeah.
So I experienced this at my previous company, and so I've seen the technical product manager role in most organizations where you have a global solution. And so what ends up happening is, each region may have its own product manager and roadmap. And then what they end up doing is they end up bringing their roadmaps to a TPM who has to look at the whole landscape and decide what is that architectural runway. What is going to be the prerequisite work, and then what should be the sequence of events, because he or she may have 7 or 8 number ones that they have to prioritize, but it's thinking about what is that logical order of rolling out those capabilities across the organization. That's typically how I've seen the TPM role in a lot of the more global organizations.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I want to call out, role clarity. I'm seeing a lot of chatter in the chat. So guys, and Elad can attest to this. And this is every organization I've ever worked with, every organization I've ever partnered with or coached with. A lot of the challenges in terms of the product space really stem from a lack of clarity of the product manager, product owner, or business analyst, and UX and dev. Sometimes the product manager takes on too much of that day-to-day tactical work. they're playing more of the product owner role because they have to. But then what ends up happening is their backlog suffers because they're not going out and talking to customers or users. And so they're not able to build out what's going to happen in 6, 12, or 18 months. So that's why, depending on the size of the organization, if you're bigger, you need that division of labor. So that way, one person is building up the strategy and another person is handling the execution.
Yeah, I mean,
great point.
absolutely, and it is, I would say the one thing, and relates to the point about curiosity before, if you're looking for clarity and like well-definedness of processes, roles, etc., you need to think about your career in product management. You need to have it. I think really it's this is, you know, kind of history being written as we do it, right? So this is not, product management is still a very young role, I would say. And this is what I meant originally when I said the modern product manager. I saw some questions around that. Eventually, product management exists ever since software started being created, but originally it was a much more, I would say, technical role that was much more to do with documentation and actual project management.
Yeah.
Whereas I think ever since Agile was kind of launched to the world, which is like 2000, early 2000, the need became for somebody to be able to, at the very tactical level, somebody to say, hey, what goes into a sprint and what doesn't, you know, to make it extremely simple. So immediately you needed somebody to say, hey, I'm going to take decisions here on what's important and what's not important on a very, very tactical level. And then it evolved over time to become, hey, but how does it, because we're building things in small increments, how do we decide how the roadmap looks like? How do we decide what to build next quarter? How do we communicate to the organization all this ambiguity that Agile brought with it? You know, and we have to be honest, waterfall is very unambiguous. It's terrible in many other ways, but it's very unambiguous because you write the plan in advance. And so the work of communication and strategic thinking is all done in advance. Whereas when you're slicing the work into those small increments of value, then you have to continuously like iterate on the strategy and prioritize and communicate like the changing priorities. And that's how I think eventually this modern product manager came to life. And it's all because of this shift from like this, like, let's think of everything in advance and build it for a couple of years to, hey, why don't we change our priorities every 2 weeks? You know, if I take the extreme example. So
yeah. So Kate, there's a really good question in the Q&A I want to answer. So it's from an anonymous attendee. I'm going to paraphrase it.
Yep.
So basically, what advice would you give a leader who wants to oversee the product department and has a diverse background in running complex cross-functional initiatives from a product customer mindset? So, all right, I find that some of the best talent for product management comes from my support team, my customer service team, because for so long, they're getting that feedback from the customer. Because ultimately, you want to find someone who is a good listener, who displays empathy, but knows how to communicate and articulate a need to a team. And so many times I'm looking, you know, I think Elad and I said it, we're looking for the attitude, the curiosity, the inquisitiveness, the ability to be empathetic, along with you know, their experience in knowing the customer, knowing the products. I find that those individuals slide magnificently into the product management role. And I would urge any leaders on this call, you know, when you're looking to build out your team of product managers, regardless of the ones you have on the screen, focus on attitude. You know, a product manager's got to be charismatic. They got to be articulate. They got to be really good at relationship building. I even joke, you know, they're a quasi politician in a good sense. So I look for those soft skills more than I look for their deep knowledge of the products, because you can teach that fast, but you can't teach the attitude. That just comes naturally to some people.
Yeah, I completely agree, Joe, and I think in terms of leadership and to complement what you're saying, I think that
Yeah.
passion and curiosity about customers, I would say, and I'm trying to say all the controversial things in this call, so I'll do my best. You have to learn how to play well with people with many types of folks in the organization, and I think
Stakeholder management.
yeah, and some people call that of course it's all part of stakeholder management, and some people might define it, you know, as politics or, you know, like navigating through the organization, etc. I cannot, I think I said it at every webinar I participate in, regardless of what the topic is. I cannot overemphasize how important that skill is for product management, especially ones that want to assume a leadership position.
Yep.
Eventually, product is really between a rock and a hard place every day, week, month, quarter, every business review, etc. Because you have, you know, ongoing needs from everybody, from your support team, who are living the pain of existing customers as they find challenges, to your customer success team, who are looking for the improvements for your existing customer base, to your sales team, who want features to sell more, from your development team, who wants to improve the technology, and so of course to the senior leadership, who has their own view about the strategy and how does that supposed to manifest in the actual product. And so being able to navigate that minefield, quote unquote, is super critical. There are a lot of resources. I think I spoke about this a couple of webinars ago, about in terms of like stakeholder management. There are frameworks around it, and I'm happy to share after this as well. But the one thing I would say, regardless of frameworks of anything, take that in as an important part of your job and an important part of your growth track. If you are shying away from becoming better at working with your external stakeholders besides your development team, you are not on the right track to become a product leader. It's like completely unavoidable, and the sooner you get into that, the better.
Yeah. You know, Elad, I think Kate and I were on the side, because Kate's on the product side at 280. Stakeholder management used to be like like a little module, and we've completely taken a blowtorch to that whole concept. And basically everything we talk about, we always end with, okay, how do we want to get this in front of stakeholders? So like stakeholder management is just, its essence is in everything that we do, because you have to be articulate, you have to communicate, you have to be transparent, you got to be humble, right? You got to be vulnerable. Those are the skills. Kate, I think we should probably go on to the next slide, but I feel like there's even so much more we could talk about this.
I know. Yeah. I feel like, I think someone, you know, my mom once asked, what do you do? I said, well, I'm kind of the translator between groups. So, you know, you have to take what one group of folks say and translate it in a way that, you know, another group can understand, and make sure that they understand how to work together. It's sort of playing that role in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's great. Okay, let's move on. I believe we have another poll coming up. So after that great discussion, I would love to hear, which product manager type do you aspire to? And we actually have more than just those 4 options for you. So we'll let Cam get that on the screen. And it's just a single answer. So go ahead and add what you think it is in there. And obviously we just talked about how, you know, titles and types can change. And as we're kind of, you know, figuring out product management as a career and as a path, we're trying to solidify that role as we go, which can lead to changes. So, all right, I see lots of answers.
Well, you know, Elad, I'm looking at this as Kate we're letting the poll run.
Yeah.
I think everybody on this call, you know, I think everyone here aspires for that next step. Right? They want to grow into a leadership role. They want to grow into that, you know, that VP role. So that's very evident in the poll results. I think we'll share that in a second.
All right. It looks like it's slowed down a little bit. I'll do our little A little
Hey,
countdown.
this is people thinking about their, what do they want to do next,
Yep.
Exactly.
Not
All
easy.
right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close it and share it. All right. So like our expert said, our top 3 here are very much on that leadership track, business product manager, or that's sort of that, I guess we could say modern product manager, but then we've got the product leadership, so a team manager or director level, as well as that VP and above sort of C-suite level. So yeah, what other takeaways might you guys have from the poll results here?
I'm going to say my joke I always say about this stuff when I start, like, for everybody who wants to aspire to be a team manager, it just means that you haven't managed people as of yet. Sorry, it's a joke. I'm 100% joking, but I think for a lot of people who haven't managed people, I know a lot of people think that's their path forward when it comes to career building. And in many cases, by the way, I saw a nice comment here. I'd like to grow into a VP salary.
Yeah.
That's a good one. But on a more serious note, I do think for a lot of, like, the individual contributor PM, like the next role is that kind of like a product leadership role. And I would say, and I'm saying this, my general belief in life when it comes to building a career is that you need to find good fit for what you actually have passion for and what you can actually be good at. And so I know for a lot of people, they think that their natural course of evolution, it has to go through that team management path, because it's like almost feels intuitive. Okay, I was like an individual contributor, and now I need to manage people. That's my next phase. I just urge people to think, is that something you're actually passionate about? Are you passionate about mentoring other people? Are you passionate about, like, being disconnected from the actual work? Because as you grow, you become less than, as we discussed earlier, you're moving away from the execution into the strategic level, and you're becoming much more of a trainer than you are becoming like a hands-on, I deliver features. And so obviously a very logical path forward for many people, and it makes sense, but be cautious and be careful, because there's also like the principal product managers who are not, like, they're basically very senior ICs who take big responsibilities. I even seen like product architects, which are very, very senior folks who are helping like a portfolio, like managing a portfolio. Just be careful when you choose that next path in your career, that you're actually passionate about people management, and you're not doing it just because it feels like, oh, that's the next thing I have to do. And if you're more passionate about like actually delivering results, and then that's the right path for you, even if it means, by the way, that you'll never become a VP product. I know it's like, I know for the guy who wanted, like the person who wanted the VP salary, I know that might be a bummer, but it's better to do something that you're very passionate about and that you enjoy doing than progressing in your career just because that's the ladder I have to climb in order to get to the next phase. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So before we move on, Kate, I want to answer a question in the Q&A. So it's, what tangible actions can you take to improve your storytelling and influence in sales? This is a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And it's one that I just was talking about with one of my classes the other day. So we start off most of our training around, or our engagement around, the voice of the customer, right? We build artifacts like a persona, and then we practice different techniques like empathy interviews, and we take the results of those empathy interviews and we build artifacts such as customer journey maps. So it's being mindful that if you really want to get senior leadership to buy in on your thought process, your roadmap, you have to bring them along on the journey. So as you get those learnings, as you talk to users, as you build out those personas or those journey maps, and you show the pain points and the struggles that the customer is having or the user is having, that's, having those tangible artifacts in your back pocket and sharing, like, here's why we're making the decisions that we're making. So it kind of goes back to one of the very beginning survey questions around, what I want to learn more about, metrics. So how do you use metrics to tell a story? how do you bring, or how do you get the stakeholder to empathize with you as you're learning more about their challenges? And so, working with UX, or even working with your BA or product owner on a persona, building out as a team a customer dream map, having it somewhere where it's really visible, that is like gold. I am telling you guys and gals, that is liquid gold when it comes to how to get alignment with stakeholders.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, and I think that, there's a lot of chatter about storytelling, and I think that's really a very interesting point in that context as well. To generalize what you're saying, Joe, I would say is that eventually, when you're telling your story, as in why am I doing this, like when you're telling the narrative, be mindful of your stakeholders is like a very, very important thing, and then you'll be able to tell change the narrative so that you can tailor it to the right audience. Like in some cases, an anecdote is more efficient than like all the data on the planet, because if you tell one compelling, empathetic customer story or prospect story that you've heard, that could be more interesting to, like, let's say somebody who's like more into like a deep connection than like all the graphs and the data in the world. So I think being able to have that flexibility of mind of saying, hey, I know who I'm talking to, and therefore I'm going to change my narrative. I still want to do this, but I'm going to change my narrative so that that person understands and empathizes better with where we are on the journey. That's a super important skill in that sense.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Yes. And I think this calls back to our soft skills of the importance of that, being able to communicate well and tell that compelling story. So that's great. There's so many great questions in the chat. And the
know we're gonna need to do a Q&A like after webinar Q&A kind of thing. There's a lot of great questions.
It's amazing. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. There's some great questions here about sort of what tangible actions you could take to improve your next step. So whether that's storytelling, whether that's strategic, learning about those metrics, all of those items. So because I want to leave a little bit of time at the end, I'm going to ask each of you just to give me your top maybe 1, 2, maybe 3, but like in very succinct way of what tangible things can someone do to keep their skills sharp or gain that upskill that can take their career to the next level. Either one can grab if you have something on your mind.
Yeah, I'll start, Elad, and then you can go. So, all right. So the top 3 things is never stop learning. Right, there are opportunities like working with 280 on training, going out and getting a certification, but being mindful of the people. Like you want to be in an environment where you meet other people. That's kind of the essence. So it's never stop learning. Try to branch out, meet other people. I think Elad even mentioned this. Try to join a product meetup. I think we have one in Pittsburgh, a product camp. He's doing an event. We're sending Ryan Cantwell, one of our trainers, out there to meet some folks. Try to find those, right? Anybody can go to those, right? It's a good way to network, meet people, maybe share your resume, make some contacts, some LinkedIn followers, and then LinkedIn with Elad and I, LinkedIn with some people that you trust in the product management space. We're sharing all the time articles and videos and great content. So I would say those are probably my big 3 as a product manager.
Perfect. All right, Elad.
I'll take the second one, Joe, if you don't mind. I really agree with everything you said, and I think we've covered some of these topics as well. So I think in terms of focusing, what do I focus on during an economic downturn? I'm going to give my general advice about like how to run a good career, regardless of which function it is. And it starts with the fact that you want to always think 1, if not ideally 2 levels above your pay grade. And how do you make that better? And I'm saying that 1 to 2 level as a general case, so that if you work in a small company, like if you work in a very large company, I don't think you need to think, if you're working in Microsoft, I don't think you need to think about what bothers Satya Nadella tomorrow morning. I don't think that that's the level you should aspire to, because it's a little bit too remote from what you're probably doing as an IC. but always try to think of how do I make eventually the organization better, and think in the one, and if not two levels above where you are right now. And it's not about, how do I get their job? Not that. Quite the contrary. How do I make them shine? How do I make them successful? What bothers them? What influences their decision-making process? So really, I mean, and this is good advice, I think, for any time, specifically in an economic downturn. I think in a lot of cases, people just like, their intuition, like, keep my head down and do my job kind of thing. And I think that's honestly, at least from my experience, I've experienced, I was in banking during the 2008 crisis. I've been through like really one of the worst layoff rounds, the modern economy has seen. And like just putting your head down and doing a good job really doesn't cut it at that point. Really, actually, what people are looking for are the people that they want to take to the journey, that they can really think bigger than their job. They can think, next level, even further than that. So that's my one thing, my one piece of advice. And then my second piece of advice, and again, this is a general piece of advice, always look for fit. What I mean by that is, I think of, and this is a bit like, anyway, I think of companies that sometimes like kind of like machines or watches, like things that have like a lot of, kind of like those wheels, and then like cogs, and then like, and it all needs to fit, because if something doesn't fit, then, it doesn't work well. And so I think trying to look for that always in your own career, and making sure that you're honest with yourself. And I know it's very difficult, especially when there's downturn. Try to find the thing that you like for your need, for your skills. That's where your best fit is. And I think in many cases, people like, how do you say, hold on to their seats. And I understand the instinct to do that, especially in an economic downturn. But they're creating more risk for themselves eventually. Finding a place where you can excel, like really excel, and you are like the best fit for the company. It's a really, really strong asset. So those are my two comments about like the second one.
Wonderful. All right. Let's go ahead and pull up our third poll, Cam.
And final poll, no?
Yes, our third and final poll. And we can move on down to, I believe it's a couple slides down. There we go. All right. So yeah, what are your plans to upskill in your product management career? So we just mentioned a few. I've seen a lot of excellent chatter in here about meetups, about mentorship, about books, and all kinds of great stuff. So thank you for participating in there. Wow, this is great. It looks like we will share this as well. But yeah, all over the board. I love it. All right, I'm going to do a countdown here. We're starting to slow a little bit. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's end it and share it. Look at this. We got everyone all over the board. I love it.
We're winning, Joe. We're winning.
Yeah, we're winning. That's right. Yeah, the webinar is
online free resources. Yes.
Well, with that in mind, so let's go ahead and move forward a couple of slides, Cam, into our follow on LinkedIn and our offers, because we definitely we want you guys to upskill with us as well. And we do offer, like Joe and Elad had mentioned, lots of great links, articles, webinars, and more on our LinkedIn. So please do follow that. And then we do have a couple media offers, some special deals for you all. So you can see here 20% off from both Craft.io as well as 280 Group. You can see there and get a special little discount there from both of our companies. I don't know if either of you would wish to share. We have one more slide about some training coming up, but is there anything?
Awesome. It's both very, this is like shameless product plugin moment, right?
Exactly.
It's great.
Perfect. And then as I share this next screen, here are some upcoming courses. You can see Joe live in person.
Yeah, come join. So Dean Peters, I think, has been on the
He's
call.
here. Yep.
He's been helping us out with the chat. So Dean's going to be doing some agile product management training in April, in just a couple of weeks. And then anybody wants to come out to Wisconsin, it's a great time of the year. In August, we're going to cover these topics and more. So please come. Love to teach you guys. Apply the product pick-em discount for that in-person training, but take advantage. Come to 280group.com/courses to learn more about all the different ways that we can partner up with your organization.
Absolutely. All right. Any final thoughts before I close this out? There's so many great questions and we're at time and it's, oh, we're gonna have to
We'll
come back. Yeah, we'll have to come back. And I do, again, thank you so much for all of you guys leaving comments and tips in the chat. But for you two, our experts, thank you. But are there any closing words that you two wish to share? And then I'll close this out.
Joe, you want to start?
Be vulnerable, be humble, be inquisitive. Those are my three words of advice for the folks that are still on the call. Be patient. I know it's not an easy time for a lot of product leaders and product managers, especially those that are without a job, but be humble, be inquisitive, be patient, be vulnerable. Those are my best advice to everyone on the call.
I second that. I would add just be hopeful, because I think we are in a tight spot in the economy, and I'm old enough to have lived it at least twice, and these times eventually end. So if nothing else, be hopeful, and so so eventually you'll find your path back. In case you are in a slight delay in your career.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both very, very much. I hope that all of you here found some insights and advice, and you really enjoyed our chat. We'll have to do a little follow-up with all of these great questions. Remember that learning and growth are ongoing, so we encourage you to continue to seek out new opportunities, and please stay connected with us on socials. Thank you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to continuing to support you on your product management journey. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.